tutorial, we're going to learn to make the shawl that I'm wearing right now. It's called Sharbella, and it's by Merino. And Sharbella means beautiful scarf in Italian, and that's exactly what this is. And in this, for this shawl, we are using Luette Gems Sport. It is merino yarn. It is so nice to work with, and it has a beautiful color palette. I'm going to give you a link here on screen to take you to my website, where you will see links to Luette websites where you can look at the different colorways of this yarn. This pattern takes 2 of the sport weight hanks. I'll also give you information about how to get your pattern and everything else. Luette has a bunch of new colorways. If you're familiar with this yarn, you should take a look. There are a bunch of new colorways in this yarn, and they are all gorgeous. And the one that I'm wearing right now is, in fact, one of the new colorways. This is called Brick Red, and I love it. And the pretty leaves in the pattern actually end up looking like fall leaves in this color. And that's what everyone agreed with me on Facebook when I posted the picture. If you've knit lace before and you're familiar with knitting lace, you'll find this a fun pattern to knit. And if you've never knit lace before, this is a good first lace pattern for a few reasons. The first is that this is sport weight yarn. It's not lace weight yarn, so it's much easier to see your stitches. You're going to have an easier time working the pattern when you can actually see the stitches that you're working. Another reason is that the designer, Mari, has given us both written and charted instructions. And if you already have a preference for which of those you prefer, they're both there. Or if you're a new lace knitter, you can try out both and see which one you like better. The third reason this is a good first lace pattern is that the actual lace panel itself isn't very wide. So it's a lot easier to keep count and correct any mistakes right away if you just have this little bit of lace going. Anyway, I'll give you a link here, the same link to my website, where you can jump to the Luette website and take a look at the different colorways. You'll find information on getting your copy of the pattern. I think that's it. I'll also give you a link to Mari Chiba, and you can check out her other designs. And in the next section, we're going to talk about the construction of the shawl and working the different stitches. If you have your yarn and your pattern and you're ready to get started on the shawl, first up we're going to talk about how the whole shawl is put together with the construction. And I'm going to leak a little information because in the last section we're going to talk about lifelines. And one thing I know that causes people fear and problems with lace is that a lot of people have started lace patterns and they have messed up somewhere and they start trying to rip out a little bit and then it gets more messed up and then they don't know where they are and they just abandon the project. And in the last section, the next section of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to work lifelines so that never happens. You're going to start the shawl and you're going to enjoy knitting it and not be afraid, and you're going to finish this shawl, and hopefully that'll give you the confidence to move forward. But first up, we're not there yet. Let's talk about the construction of the shawl. Let's take a look. Here is a close-up of the shawl and the lace. This is the cast-on edge, and you can see the lace makes this cute little, I'll scoot it up a little bit, this little kind of a petal down here. The shawl starts narrow. The lace pattern is always the same. This runs up the side and never changes. It starts out narrow, and then the shawl gets bigger and wider, and then it starts to, I'm kind of moving it quickly, and then it narrows back down again at the end of the shawl. So that's the basic construction of what the shawl looks like, the whole thing. The things that never change, the only thing that changes is the width of this panel here. It gets wider and then it straightens out and then it gets narrower again. We always knit the first 3 stitches. There's always a yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over to make this eyelet pattern on the edge, and then we always maintain the last stitches in the lace pattern. And the only other difference is how we increase, maintain the same number of stitches, or decrease along this edge. This is where that all happens, but without ever changing this eyelet pattern. That's how this is. That's how the whole thing comes together. And after you work a few rows, you really do get the gist of it. Now I'm going to show you how to work the different stitches in the pattern so that when you come up against them None of them are a mystery to you. And I'm using a worsted weight yarn and much bigger needles than the pattern calls for. And that's only so that you can easily see the stitches that I'm working. This is not the yarn that used in the pattern. We'll come up against that in a moment. The first stitch that you'll see is a yarn over, and that's what gives us the holes in the work. And so I'll knit the first stitch, and then a yarn over is just pulling the yarn forward between the two needles and letting it kind of flop over the right needle. That's the whole thing. And then you follow up with the next stitch in the pattern. So the yarn over is just that. It's not a real stitch. It leaves a hole in the work under the stitch. A good one. We want it to. And for continental knitters, the yarn over is the same thing. It's just like this. I know a lot of continental knitters will use their first finger to hold down that yarn when they go into the next stitch so that it doesn't slip off. So that's a yarn over. The next one, I'm showing you everything besides knit and purl, obviously. You probably should be good at those before you start a lace pattern. The next one is knit two together, which most knitters know because everyone kind of accidentally does it when they're a brand new knitter. Instead of just going through one stitch, you go through two stitches, just like a normal knit stitch. Just like that, going through two. And that's a right leaning decrease. The next one is purl two together. So you pull your yarn forward to purl, and instead of going through one stitch, you go through two. That's the whole stitch, purling two together. And the next one is knit three together, which I'm betting you can guess how this one works. Instead of going through one or two, you go through three stitches, wrap it and pull it through. That's a knit three together. The next one is a left leaning decrease. We did knit two together further back for a right leaning decrease. A left leaning decrease called SSK or slip slip knit is worked like this. Slip one stitch as if to knit, slip a second stitch as if to knit, take the tip of your left needle and put it into the front of those two stitches, wrap the back needle and pull it through. Now everything is done, the first two stitches are slipped separately and then they're both knit through the back loop, and that gives the whole thing enough of a twist to be a left leaning decrease. So slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, take the tip of your left needle and put it into the front of those two stitches, wrap it and pull it through. And that is an SSK. The next stitch is probably the most complicated one that we're going to come up against, and it only comes up once in the 16-row repeat, so it doesn't slow you down much. It's purl two together through the back loop. So you pull your yarn forward as if to purl, and this is the craziest stitch. I think this is the craziest stitch. You want to put your needle in, count 1, 2 stitches back, put your needle in through the second stitch and the first stitch, like so. Your needle comes through the front, wrap it, and pull it through. I'm definitely going to show you that again. You kind of line your needles up like this and take the tip of your right needle and put it through both the second, starting with the second and the first stitch, and I actually have to change positions to make this happen. Like so, wrap the front needle and pull it through. One more time. Through both of those stitches, wrap the front needle. After you get your needle in, it kind of just turns into a normal purl stitch. Wrap the front needle and pull it through to the back. That's purl two together through the back loop. And the last stitch we have to work is a double decrease. It's called SK2P. And you start by slipping a stitch as if to knit, then knit 2 stitches together. Then take that slip stitch, grab it in your left needle, and pull it over the top like you're binding off. Pull it over the knit 2 together you just did. So you decreased by kind of binding off 1 stitch, and you decreased by knitting 2 together. Let's do that again. Slip 1 stitch as if to knit, knit 2 together. The second stitch in is your slip stitch. Grab that stitch and pull it over the other one, and you've decreased by 1. So those are all of the stitches used. I'm just going to knit up the rest of those stitches so I can have this as a handy pointer. Now I have part of the pattern here that I want to show you. This is just a little bit of the first 5 rows of the pattern. And there isn't a lot of explaining to do in this other than RS, all the abbreviations are explained in the pattern. RS is right side, and it tells you exactly what to do in the stitches we just went over. You just follow along, and then most of the right side rows are just purling in the lace. And so there isn't a lot to explain here. Most people understand written instructions. And this is just the written instructions for the lace panel, and you'll see how that comes together in the pattern. Now this is what I do need to explain, because if you've never worked with a chart before, a lot of people really love them. I actually prefer to work from the written instructions, but a lot of people really love charts, and I know that they find it a much easier and faster way to work through things. Now when you're looking at a chart, whether it's a color chart or a stitch chart, each square represents 1 stitch. And this number 1 right here means row 1, and it's, the designer has been very nice to us and put it on the correct side to start reading from. So every right side row we're going to read from the right to the left. So row 1 we read across this way, and the wrong side row, starting with row 2, we read from the left to the right. Right side row, row 3, wrong side row, row 4. You see how that goes through the whole 16 row repeat. Again, this is a tiny section of the pattern and not the whole pattern. But as we're reading across, you can, these instructions give keys for both the right side and the wrong side of the work. So when you have a blank square like this, it is right on the right side, it's knit, knit. This is a yarn over. This is a knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, knit 2 together, knit 2 together. That was right, yes. Knit, knit, yarn over, knit, 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 yarn over, and this is different. This is SSK, yarn over, knit 2. That's how you read it across. I know maybe it's the reason I don't like charts is my eyes are always darting back and forth to the key. I think people who enjoy reading charts are usually able to memorize what the symbols mean. And so their eyes just, of course it would be quicker to read it this way than in the written instructions. And then row 2 is just only these empty spaces, and on the wrong side of the work, that means just purling straight across. And then row 3, we come up against some different stitches, which are knit 3 together, a couple of those. And the last thing I want to explain to you about the chart, because I know this gets really confusing for people, but the designer here has been nice enough to tell us that a gray box means no stitch. So you're working along row 3 and you get to the end of the chart and there are 2 gray boxes. But by the time you get to this stitch, you've run out of stitches in the row. That's because we've decreased a couple of times in this section, and these are not stitches. They don't exist. The chart should actually just be shaped like this, minus those stitches, because there are no stitches there. You don't have to do anything. And then when we get to row 4, there are even fewer stitches. And the stitch count throughout this lace pattern actually changes, so, but the pattern tells you how many stitches you should have at the end of each row, so you can't get confused that way. Yes, I think that's all. Whew, so much to explain with reading charts. You definitely want to use a row counter, or if you don't have a row counter, you can just do tally marks on a piece of paper, because you want to keep track of where you are in the pattern, because like I said, it's a 16-row repeat, which isn't hard or it isn't a big deal at all, but you don't want to ever have to guess what row you're on, because it'll make a difference in the way the lace looks. Next up, as promised, we're going to talk about the way to use lifelines so that you can knit and not be afraid of making mistakes. And we're also going to talk about washing and blocking your shawl. If you've watched videos I have out on Lifelines, I explain how to string lifelines through different stitches, different work, and most of them explain how to do reactive lifelines, where you've already made a mistake and you want to get a lifeline in there so you can rip back and have the stitches safely held and nothing's going to unravel. But if you're nervous at all about knitting lace and knitting this shawl, and you don't want to mess up because you want to be able to finish it confidently, I'm going to show you how to do proactive lifelines, where at every interval, every pattern repeat, the end of every pattern repeat, you can string a lifeline using some lightweight yarn, and then you have a place to rip back to where you can always get back to easily, and it's never going to unravel, and you can knit on and be confident that you're not going to abandon this project in frustration. Anyway, let me go ahead and show you how to do that. We'll actually rip back to a lifeline too. Okay, I have a little bit of knitting here, and I have deliberately left this unblocked so that you can see what it looks like before it's blocked, because lace doesn't really show itself very well. Here's my blocked shawl. See how pretty that is? Lace doesn't show itself very well until after it's blocked. So if yours looks like this, you're doing it properly. Now, you can also see here that I have this red yarn running through at different intervals here. And after I work row 16, which is one complete pattern repeat, I put in a proactive lifeline, and I can just leave it there and knit on, and it's no problem. And I'm going to show you how to do that now. I've just finished row 16. So I have a tapestry needle, and I have some lightweight yarn in a contrasting color, something that I can easily see against the yarn of the shawl. And this is a good reason to use circular needles, because you can certainly do a proactive lifeline on straight needles, but sliding the stitches down to the cord gives you more room to do it. I think it's much easier this way. So the stitches are on the cord. I am just going to slide my tapestry needle through the stitches as if to purl. And when you get to a stitch marker, don't go through the stitch marker. It'll get caught on the lifeline if you do. Just go in front of the stitch marker. And you just slide it through all the stitches. And it won't change the way your stitches look. Oh, it won't change your work at all, as long as you use a lighter weight yarn. You can even use sewing thread. I know some people use dental floss. And again, in front of the stitch marker, not through them. Okay, that is one lifeline installed. I'm just going to shorten it up a little bit. You can break the yarn. And then you just continue on with your knitting as before, and you don't have to worry. You know that you can easily rip back to this point, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do now. I don't think I've ever shown you how to actually rip back to a lifeline. So what I'm going to do is we're going to ignore this lifeline that I just did. I'm actually going to take it out, because we want to make, not really make a mistake. We want to pretend that I noticed that I've made a mistake right here. And I need to rip back, and I'm going to rip back to this lifeline here. And luckily, I've got one there, just a few rows back. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my needle out of these stitches. Be careful of my stitch markers there. And then, without worrying at all, I'm just going to rip back. And you can see here why we do lifelines, because these stitches don't look very difficult to pick up, right? That's not very hard. But when you get over into lace section, you've got yarn overs and decreases, and what do you pick up? It's not easy. And even, oh, I've had it happen before where I thought I was doing a pretty good job picking up lace stitches, and I work a few rows and then find out that I wasn't. This is the way to go. Okay, I'm just about down to the lifeline. There we are. We're down to the lifeline row, and I can't rip out anymore because the lifeline stopped me. And all those stitches are just there and safe and awesome. And what I'm going to do to make this easier on myself is I'm actually going to grab a needle in a smaller size. This is a couple sizes smaller than the pattern calls for, and it just makes it easier to pick the stitches back up. You just slide the needle through the same way that the yarn goes, the lifeline yarn goes through the stitch. It's always as if to purl. And then once you get all the stitches back on the needle, if you've been consistent and you have run the lifeline through the work after row 16 each time, once the stitches are back on the needle, you know that you are ready to work row 1 again. So putting them through, running the lifelines through at even intervals is important, so you know which row to pick up with next. So I've picked up all of those stitches, slide it to the cord, and I can actually just pull the lifeline out. Easy as that. The mistake is gone and I'm ready to go again. And because I've put them onto a smaller needle, because it was easier to run through the stitches, I'm just going to knit onto the correct size needle in the next row. And then everything will be on the right side needle after that. Now the last thing we want to talk about is blocking your work, because like I said, there's a big difference in lace between blocked and not blocked. And what you want to do with this yarn, I think it's actually machine washable, but I'm always more gentle with my knits than that. Something like this, some baby clothes that are machine washable, sure, throw them in the washing machine, but something like a shawl, it's easy enough to hand wash in a sink with some wool soap. And you can follow the directions on, for the wool soap. Usually you want some lukewarm water in the sink and you let it soak with the wool soap. I usually let it soak for 20, 30 minutes. And then I always take the knit out and put it in the washer on the spin cycle so that it spins out all the extra water, and then I'm ready to set it out and block it. And the designer, Mari, she recommends using blocking wires. I think I need to try out new blocking wires. I haven't had the greatest success with them. I always prefer pins. So you want to pin it out to the measurements for the shawl. And when it's wet, it will do anything you want. This is merino wool. It'll do whatever you want. Pin it out and make sure your edges are straight and everything. And the thing, actually Mari recommends using blocking wires on the straight edge, and it would be easier if you have good blocking wires and you're used to using them. To use a blocking wire on the straight edge would make it a lot easier and not have to use as many pins. I need to get, my blocking wires keep sticking to my yarn. I don't like that. I need to try some new ones. Be sure to remove your lifelines before you start blocking. You don't want any color transfer if that's possible. So when we're looking at this pattern and we're looking at blocking this pattern, you want to really open everything up around each leaf. You can see that's what I have here. All the yarn overs in the pattern give this gorgeous kind of outline to each leaf, and that's what you really want to make stand out. Actually, on Facebook, people were saying that they look like tulips if you look at them from this side, and they look like leaves if you look at them from this side. It's all perspective, isn't it? So what I did to make that happen is I took my fingers, I pulled on the lace just on the outside part of the leaf, and I put in a couple of pins there to hold. That's actually a little, I'm stretching it a little far. I just want the yarn overs to open up just enough. That's nice. Then I have another one down here, just enough. And then there's going to be another one there, but I was going to say I have to knit that part, but I did already knit that part and I just ripped it out. So take a look at it and just put pins in wherever it looks like you need to open up the lace so that you can see the beautiful yarn overs and everything. And then once it's finished drying, it will actually hold this shape. This is a very nice yarn that will hold the shape of the blocking once you take the pins out and start wearing it. I think that's everything. I really hope that this tutorial will give you the confidence to try lace or try lace again if you're worried about it, because the worst that can happen is you have to rip out a few rows to your Lifeline, right? And again, if you're an experienced knitter, this is just fun to knit, and the yarn is gorgeous, and the pattern is pretty simple. It's good Netflix knitting if you're an experienced lace knitter. Anyway, many thanks to VeryPink and her gorgeous design. That was very fun to work, and many thanks to Louette for sponsoring this video. Their gorgeous Gems Sport yarn. At the end of the video, we'll have another link to my website where there's information about getting your yarn and getting your pattern. I look forward to seeing your finished shawls. Good luck.